Imagine you're a high school female athlete, and then there's a boy on your team, and then he takes your spot. And then you choose to stand up for truth and reality, and you choose to wear a shirt that says, Save Girls Sports. Simple, common sense, biological truth. And then you're told that wearing that shirt is the equivalent to wearing a swastika sign in front of a Jewish student. Comparing common sense truth of protecting and saving girls' sports to the genocide of Jews, your athletic director did that to you. Imagine all that. Well, unfortunately, this is the story of Taylor and Kaitlyn from Martin Luther King High School in Riverside, California. These girls have taken a bold stance to protect girls' sports. They've even gone as far to file a First Amendment lawsuit, as well as to challenge what is happening in California state law that allows boys into girls' sports and spaces, and with the goal of to kind of reinstate Title IX here in California. These girls are bold. They are standing up for what's true. One of them is a freshman and one's a junior in high school. They should be focused on just enjoying their sport and going to school and figuring out high school and all that comes with it, not these crazy cultural things that are happening right now. And if you have been staying up to date with any of my Twitter X posts, we have a long thread going of this situation. It has gotten crazy at school boards. Hundreds of students are coming alongside in support of Taylor and Kaitlyn. But let's just get into it. And today we have them on and their attorney, Julianne, with Advocates for Faith and Freedom. And I'm so excited for you guys to hear this conversation with them. Well, welcome, ladies, to This Is a Woman podcast. This podcast episode has been a long time coming. There's been so much craziness happening in your guys' lives in regards to this whole sports situation. The listeners, they've already heard a little bit about what's going on. But Taylor and Kaitlyn, before we get into the lawsuit, before we get into hundreds of students joining alongside wearing these Save Girls Sports shirts, and if you're only listening on the podcast, you can't see, go check out the YouTube channel. You'll see the girls have their Save Girls Sports shirts actually on now, so I love that. But Taylor, let's kind of dive into it. Before the lawsuit even happened, you're a cross-country runner. And all of a sudden, you're experiencing what, unfortunately, a lot of girls are now starting to experience across the nation. There is a boy on the girls' cross-country team. Take me back kind of just to what the start of that looked like.
The start of it was, confusing. Because, this has, never happened to me before. I didn't even think this would be happening to me. So it was all just surprising that there was going to be a guy running with the girls.
Absolutely. And Kaitlyn, you're a freshman, and it breaks my heart that this is your freshman year experience of sports. When you started running cross country and there was a boy there, was this something you had even heard of yet, of boys starting to be in girls' spaces? Was this brand new? Walk me through you being a freshman and experiencing this.
Yeah, I mean, it's something I've heard here and there, very little things, but straight away jumping into having to experience that is kind of crazy to me. Just in high school already having to compete against males when you shouldn't be is just something that shocked me right away.
Absolutely. Well, like I said, my heart breaks for the both of you, but I'm so proud of the both of you as well for taking this bold, courageous stand. And we'll get into some of the legalities of things that we could see change for California and for the nation just from your guys' lawsuit. And before we get into that with Julianne, who's here with Advocates for Faith and Freedom, Taylor, there's a boy on the cross-country team. And did you guys just all of a sudden decide to show up in these Save Girls Sports shirts? Was there things that led to these conversations? And how did you two decide to do it together?
We talked about it with our families when I first brought it up. And we both of our families, we were we want to do something about this and stand up for all the women out there. And for our shirts, one day at practice, because we were allowed to wear it to one of our races. And so me and Kaitlyn one day we were like, let's just wear our shirts like to practice and stuff. And so we wore them, and then our athletic director told us when we got there that we had to remove our shirts, and that they were considered, it was like wearing a swastika, which is insane that shirts that stand up for women are being compared to that. So yeah, it was a both like mutual decision. We wanted to stand up for all the women out there.
And Kaitlyn, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys weren't the only people wearing something that said "Save Girls Sports" and like we're standing up for your beliefs. The boy would show up with bracelets or wearing things that stated his beliefs, correct?
Yeah.
And so I believe I saw it was like he was wearing like trans rights bracelets or something like that.
Yeah. What was the exact thing it said?
I think it said like proudly trans on it. So.
And was there repercussion for him wearing that, or was he just?
Not that we know of. I mean, he remained wearing it as time went on. So.
Yeah, our AD told us that he was allowed to wear those, and we weren't allowed to wear our shirts.
Okay, so this evidently became a quick violation of your First Amendment right. I mean, like the sports thing aside, there is a lawsuit just in that. So, Julianne, that's kind of when you guys, Advocates for Faith and Freedom, showed up into the picture. Walk me through this lawsuit and what we kind of see happening here.
Sure. So first of all, we are so proud of Taylor and Kaitlyn because these are two high school girls who decided to take a stand, and really a stand that shouldn't be all that shocking or making any waves. But the reality is this is the culture that we live in, where we have to make a statement about what is considered biology. And so when Taylor and Kaitlyn's families approached advocates and kind of shared what was going on, we knew that there was a lawsuit. And so the basis of the lawsuit, as you alluded to, is there's a First Amendment issue. Both Taylor and Kaitlyn wore these shirts that say "Save Girls Sports." The back of the shirt says XX does not equal XY. It's common sense. And the athletic director told Taylor and Kaitlyn that the message on these shirts was the equivalent of a student wearing a swastika in front of a Jewish student. And as Taylor mentioned, that's an insane comparison. When you're comparing a message that's promoting equality for women to a period in history that that resulted in the genocide of millions of Jews, that's an insane comparison. And so the school district's attempt to censor not only Taylor and Kaitlyn's speech, but following our filing of the lawsuit, hundreds of students showed up in support of Taylor and Kaitlyn by wearing these shirts, and school officials sought to censored their speech by telling students they weren't allowed to wear these shirts, that these shirts violated the school district dress code policy. And so there's a clear violation of not only Taylor and Kaitlyn's First Amendment rights, but also hundreds of students at Martin Luther King High School and throughout the school district. So that's one aspect of the lawsuit. The other aspect is this Title IX issue, where I don't think it's been discussed, but Taylor was actually removed from her varsity position and her spot was given to this biological male. He didn't qualify for the varsity team. Taylor worked really hard to make it onto the varsity team. She showed up to every practice. She was team captain. She went above and beyond to really excel in cross country. And instead of recognizing and celebrating the hard work that she put in, the athletic director removed Taylor from her varsity position and gave it to this biological boy. And so that lends itself to this Title IX violation in which Taylor has a right to compete, has a right to participate in female sports. And instead of recognizing her rights as a biological female, the school district completely ignored biology and instead favored this transgender student.
So on the second angle of the lawsuit, Julianne, what is your response to those that are kind of keeping up to date with this lawsuit, or hearing about it and hear, okay, you're challenging Title IX, but California law through AB 1266 since 2014 has allowed for boys to be in girls' sports and vice versa. So looking as an outsider, I mean, is it the school just following the California law? How do you file a Title IX lawsuit on that?
Yeah, so Title IX is federal law, and federal law takes precedent over any state law. And so what's interesting is when we initially filed the lawsuit, we just filed a Title IX violation on behalf of the school district. And the school district's response was, our hands are tied. We just followed state law, which is an interesting statement to make because they didn't want to take responsibility for their actions. And instead, they pointed the finger. They shifted the blame and said, our hands are tied. We've just followed state law. And so we instead actually review the state law, AB 1266, and we believe that this state law is actually a clear violation of Title IX. And so we are now challenging AB 1266 as a violation of federal law. And so we're pulling in the Department of Education, the California Department of Education, and letting the court know that this state law violates federal law. And, even just within the last couple of weeks with the new administration, we've seen executive orders, we've seen even court decisions that recognize the true definition and understanding of Title IX, and it protects biological females and their right to participate in sports, female sports, and not have those positions removed and given to biological males.
For myself as a former college athlete, and I played in high school in Southern California as well. So where I went to high school in Laverne, we actually played against some of the schools in Riverside School District. I'm so excited to hear that AB 1266 is going to be challenged. And girls, Taylor, Kaitlyn, I don't know if you guys even recognize how, the power behind that and how amazing that is. I mean, like I said just a couple minutes ago, this has been state law for 10 plus years now, and it hasn't been challenged yet. It hasn't been changed, and there needed to be the girls that were willing to challenge it and bold enough to challenge it, and the legal firm that's ready to get alongside girls to challenge it. And so this, I know I'll be praying for it. If you are tuning in, be praying that just truth prevails here, because this would change literally what we're seeing happen in the state of California, unfortunately, across all high schools. I mean, everyone's aware it's not just in one or two spots anymore. It's happening all across the state. And so I'm so proud of you guys. And then, Taylor, I want to touch on what Julianne mentioned. You lost your spot to this boy. And from what I've read and kind of what Julianne mentioned, he wasn't even meeting the requirements. Can you walk me through what those requirements are to be on varsity and how he wasn't meeting them?
So the requirements to be on varsity is, the first one is time. The second one is attendance at practice, and he was not meeting that at all. He was not attending any of the practices because he had a 0 and a 6 period, and we practiced right after 5th. So he was unable to go to those practices, yet our athletic director said that it was still okay for him to be racing, even though he hasn't attended any of the varsity requirements. And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I remember I played soccer in high school, and I remember if you did not go to the practice before a game and you were a starter, you could expect to not start. And if you didn't go to the practice before a game and you weren't a starter, you probably would expect not to get in. And those are in place for solid reasons. I mean, even though there's different classes that sometimes get in the way of things, it is a sacrifice to be an athlete. And he wasn't making those requirements. And as horrible as the situation has been, it's, again, praise the Lord, it's opened the doors for these lawsuits to play out. And Kaitlyn, you're a freshman, you're new on campus, and you're taking this bold stand, which 5, 6, 7 years ago, it wasn't bold to say only girls should be in girls sports and you should save girls sports, but that's where we're at today. You've taken this bold stand. How has this maybe affected your freshman year of just trying to figure out high school and trying to figure out high school sports?
I think that like everything that's happened, I mean, obviously I'm like closer to Taylor now and all these things, but it's just, it wasn't the year I was expecting. It definitely taught me things, but it wasn't something I ever want to like go through again. It's just disappointing, like on top of what we were talking about with Taylor. It's hard enough to get your spot taken by a girl who doesn't attend practices and all these expectations that need to be met, but especially by also being a biological male. Just like all of this happening was just so like almost stressful and just confusing for me.
Mm-hmm. And luckily, though, it seems like a lot of your classmates have supported you both through this. Taylor, what has that looked like? How have we seen students come along your guys' side?
It's been like such a blessing to see that everybody is there to support us. And there's been over, I think, like 400 students wearing shirts with us. And I've had like tons of people like reach out to me saying like, thank you so much for what you're doing. We're so glad someone's like standing up for these women. So it's just like, it's, as I said, it's such a blessing. Like, such a blessing I get to be able to do this.
Mm-hmm. And has there been, Taylor, any pushback from students? Because I'm so glad to hear you guys are getting phenomenal support. But has there been pushback in classes or discussions with other students?
Not from me personally, but from my friends. A lot of my friends have been like shoulder checked because they're wearing those shirts, and a couple of them have been like cussed out and like called really bad names, and they posted certain stuff on the internet calling people like horrible names for wearing these shirts.
That breaks my heart that, again, something that everyone agreed on less than 10 years ago has caused this. But I just want to say to both of you girls that, like, the fact that you're so young and taking this stand and having to deal with this, because this is not something that's mentally easy to deal with. I mean, high school's hard enough without all the boys and girls spaces and potentially dealing with pushback on it. You guys, like, first of all, I'm just so proud, but second of all, like, this is just going to set you guys up so well for your future. I mean, having to deal with these things at your age, I mean, at this point, I think you guys are unstoppable, like, whatever comes your way. But being an athlete, Kaitlyn, what has that meant to you? Why have you chosen to be an athlete? What has it kind of provided for you in life?
Growing up, I think since the age of 3, I've been playing soccer, and I decided to do cross country too because it was fun to me, and the environment was so fun. But just having like soccer throughout my whole life is such like a stable place for me, I feel like, and it's something that like relieves stress and somewhere I can always go to. And it's scary that that's something that cannot always be a like stress relieving place if we're gonna have all this going on. And it's like cross country people may be like it's not as physical, and having a guy may not affect you in cross country. It does. It affects you mentally and emotionally, and not only standing up, you have to stand up for it now, because in more physical sports like water polo, soccer, flag football, literally anything, really any sport, it can hurt you physically, but it can also take away opportunities. It can also mess you up mentally. You can get less recognition, get awards taken away, placement, anything. And I just feel like it's so hard to have this all going on.
Mm-hmm. And that's such an important point. I think so many people sometimes think, oh, well, this is only an issue when it's a contact sport, not realizing the mental toll it takes on you, how you can lose your position. I know for me, the one thing I loved about being able to play soccer was like when you had a bad day at school or having drama with a friend or you had just a rough day, like getting out on the soccer field was when I just got to like forget everything and just do the thing I love. And so I don't think people are recognizing enough what boys being in girl spaces is taking away from girls and women. Taylor, What has being an athlete meant to you? Why have you chosen to be an athlete? Because it's not an easy thing to do.
Um, I've done soccer for 6 years when I was little, and then I started getting into track, and I just fell in love with the sport. Like it's a great for my mental health. Like I just love like running so much. It's like such a great way to like get all like my stress out and everything like that. So it's like um, when I like miss practice, I always want to like be like, oh, I don't want to miss practice. Like I want to just be there and yeah, and it's just like such a great I love doing sports so much. It's just amazing for my mental health.
Absolutely. And Julianne, as Taylor mentioned, students got alongside them and hundreds of them began wearing these shirts every Wednesday. And I believe, girls, are they still wearing them every Wednesday to school?
Yeah.
Amazing. So they're wearing these shirts. Julianne, even after you guys filed that First Amendment lawsuit, how did the school originally react to all these students wearing these shirts?
Yeah, so the school attempted to censor the students, as was mentioned earlier. Hundreds of students showed up to campus wearing these shirts, and school administrators tried to pull various students into the office. They pulled them out of class, kept them away from instructional time. Taylor's sister was one of those students that was pulled away for wearing the shirt and kept in an administrator's office, was questioned about why she was wearing the shirt. And so the school district attempted to censor essentially hundreds of students. They kept referring to their dress code policy. And it really took public opinion, public input to essentially twist the arm of the school district to make an about turn. Suddenly, these shirts were okay. They could permit them. Taylor and Kaitlyn still aren't able to wear these shirts, but as the girls mentioned, there's students that are still wearing these shirts every Wednesday. And that really just goes to show just what not only the stand that Taylor and Kaitlyn are making, but this issue affects students, female athletes, all over. And so it's amazing to see so many young people that are standing up in support of Taylor and Kaitlyn. And unfortunately, it's the adults that are running the school district that are in the wrong. And just like every movement, so often it's the young people that are taking bold stands. And something I want to emphasize is Taylor and Kaitlyn have handled this with so much grace and love and kindness. None of this is geared toward any particular person or individual. It's all about protecting the rights of female athletes, and we have federal law that protects those rights. And so Taylor and Kaitlyn have done a phenomenal job. This isn't easy. Again, they're high school students. They should be able to go and play in their sports, go to class, but they are taking this bold stand and are doing it with so much grace and love and respect for everyone that's impacted or touched by this lawsuit.
And that's such an important point, Julianne. I think even when I stuff in regards to protecting women and girls sports, I've gotten a lot of, well, you're anti this or you're hateful of this. And it's like, no, I'm just having fair sport. I mean, that's the message we need to stick to at the end of the day. And it's just been great, even as an outsider, just to watch how Taylor and Kaitlyn have stuck to that message. I do want to touch on something you said, though, Julianne. So the girls, Taylor and Kaitlyn, they're not allowed to wear their shirts still. Is that correct, Julianne?
That's right. So the last communication from the school district was from the school principal saying that the girls were not permitted to wear their shirts, and so that's part of the reason why this lawsuit was initiated. And so we're hopeful that the court will recognize Taylor and Kaitlyn's First Amendment rights to be able to wear these shirts.
And what do you see the next steps of this playing out in the courts? I know there's a lot of people that will be listening that maybe don't understand how lawsuits play out or wonder why nothing has made a decision yet. But these can be a long processes. So can you kind of explain what you guys are expecting to see and how you expect this to potentially play out timeline-wise?
Sure. So the unfortunate part is lawsuits can often take several years before there's any clear resolution. We're hopeful that just with the new administration, this case will move along a lot more quickly. Like I mentioned earlier, President Trump has already issued an executive order that clarifies the scope and what Title IX means and who it protects. And so that should be a very clear a clear message for the courts to be able to see this is what Congress intended Title IX to do, is to protect female athletes like Taylor and Kaitlyn and female athletes across the country. And so while there's never a good time for a lawsuit, we think that just with the current administration and having the backing of President Trump, who recognizes and understands biology, that we can hopefully move this case along a lot quicker and hopefully get some clear resolution to the lawsuit on the First Amendment aspect, but also seeing this law, AB 1266, overturned as a violation of Title IX. And just to even clarify, in case viewers or listeners don't know, AB 1266 states that school districts have to allow students to participate in sports and use bathrooms and locker rooms consistent with their gender identity, regardless of the student's biological sex. And what Title IX does is it says that you cannot discriminate against individuals based upon their sex. And so AB 1266 completely thwarts Title IX. And so that's why we're hopeful that with the clear understanding of what Title IX protects, we can get AB 1266 overturned.
Yeah, and that would, again, to all you listening, be in prayer about that, because that would just, again, change the direction of California. And kind of as we wrap up here, just a couple little things left. Taylor, so there's this boy that is on the cross-country team running. Was there issues with him in locker rooms or restrooms at all with you guys, or was it just kind of on the field?
He did use the girls' restroom. He has been using the girls' restroom, but because he was unable to go to these practices, he wasn't there to be able to use the locker room. So I didn't see any of that locker room stuff, but I know at tons of other schools, there are tons of situations of boys going into the girls' locker room.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it unfortunately seems to be something that's prominent in the Riverside School District where you guys are at. It just seems, I know from what I've heard, there's a boy on the girls' water polo team at another school in your district. Your guys' school district was blowing up in the news 2 years ago because there was a boy like initiating fights with girls and going into the girls' restroom. And so I also trust, though, that these things are being exposed in your district for a good reason. And like, again, I have seen like Mama and Papa Bears pop up and like hit those school board meetings, and like they're not stopping anytime soon. So you guys are really just like on the brink of this officially probably turning over in your school district and seeing a change, because things can only go so far before all of the community wakes up, and I believe they are. And so you guys are really on the tip of being the top of that turning point here for your school district. But Kaitlyn, could you give maybe a piece of advice to other girls that might be in high school or junior high or even college that are dealing with this and maybe they're too scared to say anything or they're not sure how to approach this? Can you kind of maybe share what made you bold enough to take a stand to save girls' sports?
So I know it might be scary, but like for me myself, it was a little scary, but hearing like all the other people agreeing with me is so helpful. And once you do it, there is so much support that you won't even think you'll have this much support, but when you like do, you'll see it all, and it's like amazing. And I think you should all just stand up for this too if it's going on. Even just do the part you think you can do, because I know sometimes it's scary to go as far out of your comfort zone, but it's worth it, and it's for a good cause in the end, and there's so many people supporting you, including us.
Absolutely. And I think it's one of those things that people might be afraid to say something at first, but then when you do, you realize speaking or talking about the truth is so freeing. to just say the truth and boldly stand for the truth. And like you said, Kaitlyn, so many people will come alongside to support you, especially on this issue. I mean, this is an issue statistically we see across party lines. People are agreeing on it. I mean, I think it's probably the most uniting issue in the state of California, that we actually see, again, not necessarily at the Capitol or elected official wise, but as the public, as a community, pretty much comes together on this issue that girls deserve safe sports. Taylor, how about you? What piece of advice would you give to any girl listening that may find themselves in that same situation?
I would say to just like keep going. Like it will be hard, like it will be tough, but just know that me and Kaitlyn, we are here for you, and we will continue to keep standing up for all of the women out there.
Amazing. And Julianne, what is the best way for people listening, whether they're in California or they're in another state or even in another country, because we get those people too, that are like, I want to support these girls and what's going on in this lawsuit? How is the best way for people, or even if there's multiple ways? One, I already mentioned it, through prayer. Be praying for these girls and be praying for this lawsuit. But what are other ways people can actually support physically?
Yeah. So I would definitely reiterate prayer is so important. This is as much a legal battle as it is a spiritual battle. So we certainly would love the prayer support of your listeners. But the other ways, so Advocates for Faith and Freedom is a nonprofit, a law firm, which means we represent our clients like Taylor and Kaitlyn for free, because we believe in protecting the First Amendment and many other issues. And so we would value financial support from people that are willing to support this battle and protecting and saving girls' sports. And then there's also just spreading the word on social media and spreading the message of what this lawsuit is about, getting the attention of others, and just continuing to advocate for female athletes. And so our website is www.faith-freedom.com. There's a donate tab, and there's also an opportunity to sign up for a newsletter where we send out regular updates, not only on Taylor and Kaitlyn's lawsuit, but other lawsuits that we've filed across the country.
Amazing. And so for all of you guys that want to donate, I will put Advocates for Faith and Freedom, I will put their website where you can find the donate tab and all of that in the caption. So check that out to donate, but also go get one of those shirts. And I mean, I think that's the best way. If you want to post about it and talk about it on social media, buy one of the shirts, take a photo in it, and just kind of let people know what's going on. And that, again, the shirts are simple. They just say Save Girls Sports on the front and XX does not equal XY on the back. I mean, it doesn't get any more simple, common sense, reality, biological truth, all those things. It's straight to the point. But with that, Taylor and Kaitlyn, or I'll start with you, Taylor, any specific way people can be praying for you during this time and with this situation?
I would just pray for the lawsuit, and I would pray for also these individuals. That's a big thing. I've been praying every single day for these individuals because it just makes me sad, and I'm so glad I get to pray for them and be there for them.
Amazing. And Kaitlyn, how about you?
Yeah, I was going to say about the same thing. I mean, it's great. We definitely want prayer for ourselves, but I think it's important to pray for everyone else going alongside with this too, for just wisdom and everything just throughout all this. I feel like not only do we need prayer, but everybody needs prayer right now. Absolutely.
And Julianne, like you touched on, this is a spiritual battle for sure. I think as Christians, we can see that this is a good versus evil. And that's not necessarily saying the boys that play in girls sports are the evil. I mean, they're lost right now too. And so, yeah, be praying for those students that are wrapped in confusion right now, for them to be freed from that. And Julianne, as we wrap up, is there any final words that you want the listeners to hear from you?
Sure. So I just want to encourage people to just continue to advocate on behalf of our female athletes. We've worked really hard to get where we are, just for women's rights, just the ability for women to be able to participate in their own sports. And kind of the theme of this lawsuit and is that women have a right to be champions in their own sports. And so this lawsuit, while it's centered on Taylor and Kaitlyn, it's going to have far-reaching impact on female athletes across the state of California and hopefully across the country. And again, this is a simple message that XX does not equal XY, and we're advocating for a simple concept that female athletes have protection under federal law, and Taylor and Kaitlyn have the right to express their beliefs regarding gender identity. And so I would encourage others to take a bold stand. As Taylor and Kaitlyn mentioned earlier, it can be scary to take that stand, but we need more young athletes like Taylor and Kaitlyn to take this bold stand. And Advocates for Faith and Freedom is ready to step in and help those that may be facing their own legal challenges. But I'd just encourage others to follow Taylor and Kaitlyn's leading and take a stand to save girls sports.
Absolutely. This whole situation with Save Girls Sports is something we're going to be reading about in the history books one day. I hope it's something that when my future kids read about it, they can also hear about how we won on all this stuff. And I know they'll definitely be seeing your guys' names in that history book as well as Turning the Tide in California. But with that, thank you all for tuning in, and we will catch you all next time.